camera off. Hey, everybody.
Well, that's a delightfully professional start to proceedings, as always. I might as well do the gravity-defying hair now. Fuck it. Look, gravity-defying hair. Ah, fucking hell.
There you go.
So anyway, let's talk about the paedophile that nearly got elected to Senate.
And didn't. Yes,
and
so
didn't.
Welcome, everybody.
Yes.
Kevin Logan and I are just, we're talking, we're quatschreden. We're just going to talk some crap and stuff about the things that are happening. And the first topic that we're going to address is the surprise upset of Roy Moore in Alabama, the man who has been credibly accused by multiple women of being pervy and creepy and actually interacting with them physically when they were underage. And in a close race, but in a race he ultimately lost. Roy Moore lost, and Doug Jones is now the new Democratic senator for this great state of Alabama.
No,
Kevin.
No, sorry, not great. Let's just cut that out.
Every state's the great state. It's the great state of Nebraska, the great state of New York, the great state of Wisconsin.
They always do that, and there's the great state of South Carolina. Oh, fuck South! If South Carolina disappeared tomorrow, who the fuck would miss it? Fuck South Carolina.
They still call members of parliament. They still call members of parliament the honorable sir or the honorable lady, when some of them, we haven't been so honorable in the past.
None of them are, virtually. I mean, yeah, that's. But don't look at the British Parliament for your fucking advice on semantics. Jesus Christ, you can't even. I mean, this is completely off topic, but it's true. You can't accuse, if you're a member of Parliament, you can't accuse another member of Parliament of being drunk. That's not allowed. You will get kicked out and booted from the chamber for a day or two. And you have to say that they're overtired, even if they're blind drunk. Literally can't fucking stand. Can't say they're drunk.
Well, I did hear a story that in the House of Lords, they put big armrests on the chairs because the people would be drunk and fall over asleep during the middle of debates.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. There's always if the chamber is even reasonably full, there's always some fucker in the background asleep. Always. I don't know what this is. This is not relevant in the slightest. Also, another Parliament fact: the distance between the two seats is so that they can't. If they had outstretched sabers, they couldn't touch. So there you go. That's why that's that distance. So they didn't stab each other.
No fighting in the Parliament. Yes, no fighting in the House.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to this child rapist who, from the fucking great state of Alabama. Yeah, he's there's so much to unpack here. And I was going to do a video, and I was going to call it, quite cleverly, Say No More, with more with the double O, so that's quite clever. That's a pun that actually works. But yeah, and it was going to be basically, I don't want to piss on your cornflakes, but, and then list off the fact that the people of Alabama should be pleased that they didn't get Roy Moore as senator. But the fact that a man who raped a child at least and had sexually inappropriate behaviour with numerous other young women, to the point where he was banned from malls and went to open a school or something, they had to send a police officer specifically to shepherd Moore away from the young girls at the school. Right? He said that homosexuality should be illegal. He said to an African American, which is just amazing optics, that the last time America was great was during slavery. And that man came this fucking close to sitting in the US Senate. That's why I say, you don't get rapturous applause for doing the bare fucking minimum. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I was going to look more at some of the voting behavior because I'm nerdy that way.
Well, we can do that
like
as
an awkward transition.
Yeah, an awkward transition. So let's go. You don't get advice from me, but I'll tell you who does. The black women of Alabama. Yay!
Yeah, so it was one of the amazing things, in terms of that result was you got to tip your cap to the black community of turning out at levels normally reserved for what they did for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. So the amount of commitment and organizing and passion that we saw was absolutely crucial to that victory. So yeah, I think there was a lot of recognition think it sort of sent a bit of a shockwave. You know, the black voters of Alabama and other people of color too. I don't want to just emphasize only the black voters, but also other people of color who turned out. Every vote counted. But the communities that have been so often marginalized are now to a point where, because of the diversity of America and also because young people, the millennial generation is by and large Democratic in terms of its voting, and young people were voting for the Democratic candidate. That coalition now is tilting races and can tilt races when it decides to exercise its power. And once you've seen that in Virginia and now you see it again in Alabama, well, now Arizona, Nevada, other places start looking those purples start looking a lot more dangerous for Republicans.
Yeah, it's. I think that's, you hit on a great point about that. Sort of odd ad hoc union of different people, the young folk, ethnic minorities, black people, and the rest of it, can sway elections, and not just elections, because if you look at the voter demographics on the other side, 74% of white men who voted in Alabama, the pedophile, which is worrying, deeply worrying, but it means that even if you get 3/4 of white men, and I think there's something like 64%, 63% of white women, you still might lose, even in Alabama.
Right.
Easy. And it's, I mean, to widen it out slightly as well, the Republicans need to get their fucking act together. And that's, like, I love seeing them lose, but I wouldn't want to see a situation where they couldn't, like, there's no challenge or anything in certain places, which, if you're losing in Alabama, it means that a lot of other parts of the country you're going to get fucking wiped out, which isn't particularly healthy for any democracy, for a two-party system to become a one and a bit party system. If you're losing in Alabama, guys, you've got a serious fucking problem, and you need to stop the Trump Bannon wing from taking over completely, because they're just going to start electing these putting forward these candidates that are going to lose even in Alabama. That's not a sustainable situation for you guys. So get your fucking house in order.
And to that point, you know, Bannon isn't going to stop. Ooh, I got some feedback there. Bannon is not going to be stopping anytime soon. And the kinds of people who are supporting him and who came out hard, you know, were very much dyed in the wool sort of Roy Moore supporters. That contingent is still very active, and they were the people who, you know, were behind Trump. So even though this was a defeat for that party, that part of the party, if Roy Moore hadn't been so toxic, then the Republican candidate, who might have been, you know, almost, well, very close in terms of a lot of policy issues, could have won.
Yeah.
And so it was a perfect storm that sort of that the political, you know, like winds came together to create this perfect storm that allowed a Democrat to get elected, a pro-choice, not banned by after 20 weeks abortion access Democrat as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's like you said. If it had just been if Roy Moore, his entire personality minus the child rape, he gets elected. And
yeah.
but they still put forward this fucking lunatic because that was the Bannon choice. That's not sustainable, because you're going to end up with these hideous candidates coming forward who are,
and
I mean, just really nasty bigots on all fronts. And that's not sustainable. Like you say, the younger voters and black voters, you're going to just totally alienate them by being this extreme, then your long-term demographic possibilities are slim.
What I'm seeing basically, like, again, you know, sort of form on the ocean of political of history, is the need for kind of what David Cameron did to the Conservative Party, modernization, or what Blair did with New Labor. There needs to be a distinct set of individuals within the Republican Party who are actually committed to the Republic, the office of the presidency. We can disagree on how we get to policy decisions or whatever, but at least in terms of the framework.
Yeah.
You know, they're still committed to the idea of a constitutional framework. If I could just finish. Sorry. And I think the party is, it's dying. You need people like Steve Schmidt and Michael Steele. You need people like David Frum and Jennifer Rubin. You need Bill Kristol. You need George Will to be the intellectual and moral political center, not necessarily like on moral issues, but in terms of what the Constitution is and how it operates and the checks and balances and the importance of the fourth estate. We need them with. And I actually support those Republicans. I want to have debate with those Republicans. I don't want to have debate with Steve Bannon, who's promoting alt-right and right-wing stuff. So yeah, I think you're right. The Republican Party is getting to a point where it's no longer functioning as a constitutional opponent to the Democratic Party, and we need constitutionalists to reform the Republican Party. I think in the next couple of years, it's almost going to be inevitable.
Yeah, they're going to have to, yeah, because had that moral centre been there, Donald Trump could never have been even candidate, let alone actually become president, because they would never have supported it. And you can see constantly with the way in which the Republicans have given token resistance to the extremism of Trump and Bannon, but have gone along with everything, seemingly. I mean, there's been a few outliers, and because the majorities, certainly in the Senate, are so slim and now even slimmer, they've failed to get a lot of stuff through. But in terms of, like you say, the attacks on the fourth estate, on the attacks on rape victims and stuff like that, they've given token resistance but gone along with all of it. These people care only for A, themselves, and B, the Republican Party rather than the Republic. And that's fucking dangerous for everyone, really, isn't it?
I think it was Steve Schmidt, and I'm sorry if I get this in error, someone wants to check me in the comments later on, that there are a group of Republicans who are of the mind now that a Democratic-controlled House is the only proper check on a Trump presidency. And when you don't have,
I think that's probably true.
Yeah, when you don't have faith in your own party to uphold the Constitution, that party's dead.
Yeah, basically. I'm skeptical as to whether that is a big enough faction within their party that that's going to make much of a difference at the moment. Going forward, it's going to have to grow, and they're going to have to change, or they're going to die. And some other Bannonite thing will spring forth, and God knows what that will look like. Ultimately, at the moment, I don't think they've got enough fucking backbone to stand up to them.
Well, not the people in Congress, but the people outside.
Yeah.
Outside critics and outside activists. Mitt Romney, for instance, could be a figurehead in that kind of
but Mitt
direction.
Romney's such a dick as well, though. This is the thing.
I know you have to, again, this isn't about Mitt Romney and all his policies and everything else. This is about where do you have common ground? And I do think that he has a respect for the office of the presidency. I have a closer political agreement with Mitt Romney on the dignity of the office of the presidency than I do with Donald Trump. And so for the purposes of leading that sort of reform to take us back, I know this is crazy, right? I'm the progressive saying we need to go back to like what we had 4 years ago, because that was better when we had the cool, calm, collected, no drama Obama presidency. And not just the cool, collected person, but just the respect, not only that the office itself commanded, but the respect shown to others by the person in that office that made that office so dignified. It's that when that's being violated, a core part of why we respect leaders is being eroded, and not for blind faith, but because those are important roles. Whoever sits in the seat is still holding the office that is the executive of our nation. And that is important for the functioning of our democracy. So I don't think, as you said, they're going to have to change or die, but I don't see them reforming everything. I think I see them splitting.
Yeah, I think that seems relatively likely, but you might have a situation where if Trump were to be ousted at some point or another, there would just be a faction that broke off, and the majority of what reasonable Republican Party remains would on as the Republican Party, and you might get some sort of Breitbart third party, sort of neo-fascist fucking party, basically. So there'll be, it might be a split, but I doubt it'll be a sort of 50-50 split. I think it'll be more of a splintering of that faction.
Yeah, I would agree.
because they're going to have to, because if you can lose in places like, I'm repeating myself, but if you can lose in places like Alabama, there are parts of the country where you're going to get fucking wiped out that you should be able to compete in at least.
Now, one thing I did want to say about the results in Alabama, because I don't want to like all credit, like I said, to people of color turned out, especially the Black community and its organization and what they did, but to unpack the white vote a little bit. I think I've seen the numbers going around about the percentages of white men and white women, with white men voting for, both of them voting overwhelmingly for more, but with men voting at a slightly higher rate. I did see other information which broke it out by education, and in both cases for men and women, people with college degrees were like double digits less likely to vote for more. And I think you saw that probably like that impact with millennial white women. I would imagine that is probably where the split would be the most generous toward Jones. And one thing I wanted to point out about that, yes, white people voted overwhelmingly for Roy Moore. That's just empirically true. But what we can't count are all of the Republican men and women who decided not to go out and vote because they couldn't vote for Roy Moore. And we don't know what that number would have been. And we just can't because they didn't vote. But it was the case that it seemed like Republican turnout has been depressed. People aren't as motivated to turn out for whatever reason. And of course, you're never going to know if that would have swung the race. But I think that's something that, given that some people chose to not vote as a way to oppose more rather than voting for the Democrat, I think we should at least just put that little asterisk in there as a reminder.
Yeah, I think I've heard some activists on the ground, as it were, in Arizona, not in Arizona, in Alabama, saying that the evangelical vote was less enthused because of the sexual impropriety stuff, which is good, but the fact that any of them were enthused is worrying. But yeah, clearly a lot of people didn't turn out. A lot of white people refused to turn out, and I can respect that to a degree. If you're one of these people who would never vote for a Democrat, especially if pro-choice, like you say, a very pro-choice guy in a very conservative area, if you don't want to vote for him, fine. I've got I disagree with you, but I've got no problems with that. But you can't, in any fucking good conscience, vote for a man and this is the thing, there are some people who are deluded and think it is fake news and deep state fucking thing going on, blah blah blah. Most of the people, I think, are sensible enough to know that there is some truth to these allegations. Whether they're entirely true or not, who knows. It's the fact that it happened so long ago suggests that we will never know, but there's certainly some truth to it, and a man like that is a fucking monster. You can't vote for that. And so the fact that some people decided not to, okay, I can tip my hat, if not necessarily salute that decision on their part, because I think that is at least an ethical way of getting around what must have been a pretty difficult situation for them. Because if you're really anti-choice, the choice is a rapist or someone who you think is going to kill babies. That's not a great choice for you, is it? But the fact that they chose not to vote at all, I think, on this occasion is fine, really.
Mm-hmm. It might be a case of like deliberately withholding your vote is a political act in that case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because
bring yourself to vote for a Democrat, not to vote for the Republican on this occasion is perfectly sensible.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of Arizona,
yes.
Was there more that we wanted to say on? Shall we segue from Alabama to Arizona?
Yeah. Talking of right-wing fucking pricks in a red state.
Well, yes. So one of the things that sort of has cropped up on Twitter for those of you who run in the circles who care about this kind of thing is that Tim Pool had decided to pull out of the Kilroy event because he was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a non-compete clause.
Should we explain who Tim Pool is?
Should I pull that up? Yeah, why don't you do that and I'll get the screen out.
Yes, Tim Pool, for those who don't know, is an American chap who was challenged to go to Sweden and came back and made up a load of old shit about how the Muslims have taken over, and he's basically an alt-right mouthpiece, fucking tool. But on this occasion, he's at least a tool with some modicum of principle, who has decided that he doesn't like being hamstrung by the supposed free speech event, this Kilroy about free speech, but has now basically said, oh yeah, if you attend, you have to sign this thing where you can't talk about certain stuff. But even though there doesn't seem to be any particular reason why they would need to do that. But there you go.
Yeah. Now, of course, I moved the screen and it went off, but I found it again. So are you seeing it on your screen, Kevin?
I'm indeed seeing it on my screen, Kristi. Thank you.
I was like, I feel like we just turned a newscaster. It's like, and throwing it back to you, Kev. All right. Well, this was
now over to Jonathan's board.
Yes,
that's got to go.
Go! All right, so to Tim Pool's
Anyway.
tweet, he basically said he was going to attend, but then he decided to pull out. He wasn't going to attend any longer. And apologies to people who were planning on seeing him there. And when asked why, he said, as you can see on the screen, they asked for a 16-month non-compete and a 3-year NDA, but they were willing to negotiate on the NC, but not the NDA. They cited safety reasons for the 3-year NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, in case you haven't heard about that yet. Strange thing to ask, and I don't trust the reasoning for such an agreement. And then Base Mama said, it isn't strange to ask.
I was just going to say,
yeah, go ahead.
She's one of the co-organisers with Dave Cullen of the Computing Forever channel. Just to explain the characters involved here. Sorry, go on.
Right. So it says it's not strange to ask, it's standard practice, and I was clear that I'm not willing to risk the anonymity of dissidents whose lives are at risk for attending and speaking at Kilroy. Calling me out in public isn't going to compel me to bend on this. And then he said, I'm not calling you out, and it descended into an argument. Now, I also managed to get, I was informed about, like someone posted in a group this. Now this may, it's alleged, it says that it's from the Kilroy event. I can't independently verify that. So if this is not the document that was referred to or one like it, then my apologies. I'll put a correction in the description box. But if it is what they're talking about, this appears to be what he was referring to, which says this is a non-disclosure and non-compete agreement for our company. So the confidentiality of discussion regarding Kilroy Event LLC, including but not limited to information and material regarding its operations, guests, and finances shared with the intent of possible or organizational involvement, shall remain in full force and effect for a 3-year period subsequent on to December 10th of 2017. And then the next bit is about, yeah, so you go ahead.
I was just going to say, the fucking standard practice, which is what you claimed, response to Tim Pool, and also it's including but not limited to operations. Now, that, I mean, there could be legitimate reasons for that, but if they're up to some shady shit, and you should call them out on that shady shit, but that falls under operations or finances or whatever, and you've signed this agreement, you're putting yourself in legal hot water for daring to expose corruption. So basically, they basically want a blank check to be able to do what they want without being called out by these people with large media platforms. Now, I'm not saying they are up to anything, but I'm saying in order for transparency, why would you want to gag people, especially when you're billing yourself as a free speech event?
And well, yeah, I can get into the specifics, but this is just insanely broad. But I'll get onto it. I just want to just summarize the next bit, and then I'll take the screen share off and come back online. But the next bit is basically about the non-compete, and which is really also strange. Let me just quickly go over it. You recognize that the various items of information discussed with the intent of possible organizational involvement with Kilroy Event LLC are special and unique regarding its current and future operations and need to be protected from improper disclosure. In consideration of the disclosure of the information to, and then it's blanked out, agrees and covenants that for a period of 12 months after the April 2018 convention of Kilroy event and beginning on 30th December 2017, so-and-so will not directly or indirectly engage in any business competitive with Kilroy Event LLC. This covenant shall apply to the geographical area that includes the area within a 100-mile radius of Phoenix, Arizona. Directly or indirectly engaging in any competitive business includes, but is not limited to, engaging in a business as an owner, partner, or agent, becoming an employee of any third party that is engaged in such a business, becoming interested directly or indirectly in blah, 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 blah. But apparently this only applies to Phoenix, Arizona, at least the covenant, or the non-compete part of it. So this is all very, very
also,
strange.
Am I given to believe that the 100-mile radius of Phoenix, Arizona is mainly infested with coyotes? rather than people, really.
I don't know. No, I'm sure it's a lovely area with rolling suburbs and plenty of.
I mean, exactly. Yeah. If sand farming business, if that's what you were planning on doing within the 100-mile radius of Phoenix, otherwise known as the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
Again, the great state of Arizona.
So a non-compete clause.
I don't think I'm going to get the job with the American Tourist Board somehow. I think they might turn me down.
Yeah, you would definitely, someone would send in a clips package of you. That would be easy.
Delaware, fuck Delaware. Why not?
Oh, don't forget Montana.
Fuck Montana. Yeah, that's a good old school reference. Thank you. Yeah, I've forgotten about that.
Pull that out from the War Corps series.
Yeah.
I think that's where I heard that
Fuck
one.
No, that was the Trump dump thing. I was doing a weekly thing, and it was fuck Montana.
Right.
Because that really odd. I might as well explain it now. Basically, that joke started with me saying fuck Montana every fucking week when it was the first week of Trump's presidency, and there was like he was going to make this big push against sanctuary cities. And I looked at the map, and the only one I could see of the screenshot I took, the only state that didn't have any sanctuary cities was Montana. So I said, fuck you, Montana, and everyone laughed. So I went, okay, and I did it every week, and it was funny. Because, again, who lives in Montana? Mainly really pasty white people and goats. Fuck Montana.
To be honest, if anyone from Montana was watching your channel and content, they'd probably also go, yeah, fuck Montana.
Yeah.
They're watching your content.
Exactly. I think Montana is such a flyover state that the people in Montana hate Montana more than anyone else, I think, to be honest.
So we were talking about something actual before this. What were we talking about?
Arizona.
Oh,
something.
no, it was about the difference between a non-disclosure agreement and a non-compete clause.
Yes.
All right. Now, okay, I am not an attorney, nor do I play one in any part of my life. However, I do know I have had some I had business class and a little bit of like stuff with doing law, like an undergraduate review of the law, whatever. My understanding of a non-compete clause really only ever makes sense when you have a business that is being handed over to somebody else for sale. So for instance, let's say, my dad had a bakery and he was really famous for this sort of kind of thing that he baked. And people would come from miles around to get his bakery, whatever. Right now, he wants to retire and sell his business. And so he sells it to somebody, including the recipe, so that guy can make what he's made all his money off of. Because when he's buying that business, he's not just buying the physical business. If he's buying the intellectual property, he's buying the recipes, and in some ways the customer base, right? So he wants to make sure that
the full franchise.
Right. Now, what if the guy goes into retirement and after a year or two decides he's really bored? He decides he wants to open up a shop doing something kind of like his original thing, but a little bit different. That's what a non-compete clause is designed to protect you against. It's designed to protect you against people who have an established relationship coming back and kind of, doing setting up a second business or competing with you in the same way. I think my dad was a Teamster, and they had a clause in their union that when you accepted their pension or whatever it was, you couldn't then, when you retired, work as somebody who would compete with a Teamster. You would have to go into, he ended up doing something else that was related to driving, but it wasn't what a job a Teamster could do. That's kind of like a non-compete clause.
Yeah. It's basically to stop you undermining someone in a sort of basically fraudulent way. You said you wouldn't, or you gave the implicit guarantee that you wouldn't, and then you did, and it's going to fuck up someone else's financial interest, basically.
It's making explicit, like, you don't get to make another bakery thing and sell it in this town for 5 years. You need to give me a chance, kind of thing. I've never heard it used.
I can only assume, therefore, there must be loads and loads of shitlord jamborees happening within 100 miles of Phoenix, Arizona.
Well, this is it. That's why it doesn't make sense. I don't understand who the speakers would be competing with, unless they were.
There's nothing going on. What event is like that that's going on anywhere near Arizona or fucking anywhere? Frankly, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I mean, it's not like if they're gonna do what was this guy's name again? Sorry,
Tim Pool.
Tim Pool, yeah. If he were to, sorry, my alarm is going.
Someone. Oh, I thought that was your phone going. I was about to say someone.
No, it was my external speakers. Oh no, it's my Alexa.
That's because you're so lazy.
Cancel my alarm. Sorry.
Why did you have an alarm set for 8:30 at night? That's mental.
I thought
How
it was
late do you get up?
Yes, that's it. So getting back to before we had all of my Alexa interference. She's my Rory Cats, you know, when she goes off at random times or whatever. Now what were we saying again?
Did she throw up on your carpet as well?
Thankfully not. Thankfully not.
Okay.
But I asked her to spell things. She can't spell anything yet. Then I've been able to get her to do. And she doesn't, well, I haven't spoken very much German to her either. Just because if I go completely in German, I'm afraid I won't be able to get it back into the English. But anyway. So non-complete clauses. Non-complete clauses. So that one just makes no sense to me. Now, and I just want to say this because I know Base Mama comes out. She said in her video, I watched her video where she talked about this, about people attacking her. I'm not attacking you, okay? I'm actually trying to help you out. Because I think I understand what you want to do, but I think there's a better way for your conference to go about doing this. So from what I've been able to find out, her concerns relate to ex-Muslims, dissidents, and her children being at the convention and their privacy somehow being compromised. I get that. That's, when I do research, I have a professional ethical obligation to protect the anonymity of the people who participate in my study. But we don't ask people for a non-disclosure agreement. That's not what we do. What would be much better is if you were to look up something like in confidentiality agreement or an informed consent agreement. If you want, I will send you the consent agreement that we provide in our study, and you can take out the elements that are appropriate for you. And or there are those study examples of people who do research who code, and they have to sign an agreement to not disclose information. What she wants to protect is people's private information, or maybe their faces, anything that's identifying. And I don't think any of the conference goers would have a problem if you wrote up as part of their contract that they're not allowed to share the any personal information of any other guest or participant without their written permission, or any other speaker maybe without their written permission, and to not take video of people's faces without at least getting oral consent on camera. Because I think what she wants to make sure in some ways is that people's privacy is protected backstage or in the con, or going in and out of the con, and that's fair enough. But right now, the broad nature of what is outlined in terms of not being able to discuss guests and the organization and the finances, it just seems so broad as to anticipate covering something up. And I don't necessarily think that's your intention, not at all. I think what you need, you've kind of like taken a hammer. The NDA is a hammer, and so every problem looks like a nail. And what you need here is a scalpel, not a hammer. You can just carve out exactly the kind of information that you want to ensure that nobody has either disclosed about them or disclosed about anyone else in perpetuity, in terms of from that conference. If they do it later, and meeting people, that's fine. But in terms of what comes out of that conference, then yeah, I think that people would not have a problem with that at all. So just wanted to give that advice. She might scream at me because she's mostly just come at me, but...
Yeah, Kristi is really nice, and I am not.
Yeah.
So while she was going to try and give you some help there, I am just going to call you out. Base Mama, you are unbelievably full of shit. I've got no problem with you trying to protect your children. I just don't see how an NDA really does that particularly. Like as Kristi said, you can have a much more bespoke approach to this. Also, in your video, which was a fucking rambling tirade of nonsense in which you claim that the people of Arizona are some sort of magical bestowers of brilliance or whatever. I don't really know what the fuck you were talking about there. And you started rambling about cow farms at one point, which is amazing, considering the topic you were supposed to be talking about. You do an annoying thing where anyone who opposes you opposes free speech because you've set yourself up as this arbiter. where your event is definitely completely free speech, when clearly this NDA shit shows that it isn't, and some of the people that are going there have done censorious things in the past. When we oppose you, we're not saying you shouldn't be able to talk about free speech. We're saying you're putting on an event where neo-Nazi films are going. We don't like that. So not only are we not saying we're against free speech here, we're using our free speech, which we're perfectly entitled to do. So, you know, basically put on your big boy pants and deal with that, frankly.
Yeah, so there's two perspectives on the same topic. But again, I just think it looks really bad. The optics of it are unnecessarily bad, given if the aim is to just protect people's private information. Again, you don't need a wide sweeping NDA in very vague terms, not defining what you mean by guests, what you mean by organization, what you mean by finances. The way it looks right now, people couldn't do a Kickstarter to go to the con because you would be talking about like the finances. I mean, maybe you mean the internal finances. Again, I just think it, I would honestly, like, I wouldn't advise anybody to sign that because it's not necessary. There's a better way that you could protect the information and not sign that incredibly broad general statement for a 3-year commitment.
It's a 3-year fucking commitment. It sounds like something you would get if you were going on a fucking military base or something. Well, that makes a certain amount of sense. This is nonsense. This is a shitlord con.
Yeah, it's not a movie set. You know, you're not developing a movie.
Exactly. You're not going to a fucking weapons research facility. Getting shit with other dickheads in the desert. That's what's happening here. Now, I'm not saying there isn't stuff you want to protect, because there are ex-Muslims going there and they can face cushions for this, and that's fine. But what's that got to do with the finances? If your finances are above board, what difference does it make if people are discussing the finances?
And the other weird thing that people
if people are revealing, I was just going to say, if people are revealing like bank account details, I mean, that's bad. But to just say finances, this is a publicly funded event via a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe or whatever the fuck it was. Surely people have an absolute right to say, okay, well, how's my money being spent? Surely. I don't think that's a bad thing. So why are you saying that the people that are going to the event have to sign this agreement where potentially if they discuss that perfectly pertinent usage of this public money, that they potentially find themselves in legal?
Yeah, and the other thing is, you know, some of these people are going to be speaking in public. So, you know, it's not as if you need this massively blanket non-disclosure agreement for discussing, you know, the guests. I just want to make sure that, confidentiality of discussion regarding Kilroy event, including but not limited to information and material regarding its operation, guests, and finances. And then again, I don't understand what this means with the intent of possible organizational involvement.
Well, exactly. That's broad enough to suggest that if one of the organisers discusses this with you, completely, like, you know, it doesn't matter if it's off the record or on the record, and you then relay what was told to you, that could come under operational involvement, couldn't it? So, like, even informal discussions taking place between two private people, if that's ever made public, it's broad enough where that could be interpreted to mean you've broken that covenant, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's so broad, it's so stupid.
Yeah, if you ever read legislative language, well, the first thing that the sections usually do after it sort of state what the language is about is to start defining. By organization, we mean businesses or groups of people. By guests, we mean all persons invited to speak or guests of people invited to speak or the family members of people running, you know, and then just none of that there. So it's just sort of weird that it almost looks like it would be a problem to promote the conference if you're promoting the speakers, if you're a speaker.
Exactly. Like if
so
surely,
interpreted.
Yeah, surely you would want people to know who's going to the event. So that would then people would go, oh, okay, that person's going. I'll go to the event then because I want to hear that person speak. Like, why would you keep that? Why is that supposed to be kept private? That's ridiculous.
And oddly, it doesn't cover like any video recording or recording material. Maybe this is not the full complete thing, but certainly it seems to me when it comes to, you know, confidentiality, anonymity, and copyright issues, like what gets recorded and who has the rights to that. But maybe I'm not saying the full document. But again, it just it seems like there is contradiction between the fact that if people are going and speaking in a public event and they're being put on a program and advertised as speaking at an event, then to what extent do you have to protect their identity beyond the anonymity the conference gives them? You know, if they've got a pseudonym or if they're going to speak from behind a screen, obviously you have to honor that, but you know, you don't need that kind of language to do that.
Yeah, and especially if someone's going to turn up in a llama costume, for instance, to protect their anonymity. That would be
like I kind of where was that last standing? Because so first it was Bering was gonna say if Michael goes, I'll do the fundraiser, I'll set it up, and I'll promote it if he'll go and talk to Sargon. Then Michael said yes, I'll go. And if you want to know, these are the things I need covered in terms of my expenses. And then Bering was like, oh wait, you said yes. Now I actually have to do something, and you've given me a budget, so I'm really offended. So now I'm not going to do it. And then Michael said, well, fine, because I didn't want to go in the first place. And I'm not going to put together a fundraiser in the hopes that you promote it because I didn't want to go in the first place, which is the whole reason why you set up the fundraiser. And then Bering said, okay, we're going to go, I'll set up the fundraiser. But has he ever set up the fundraiser?
I don't know, and as far as I'm aware, that's as far as the story has gone to this point. It's sort of difficult because Michael's intermittent with his internet access. What with him being a Jolly Roger fucking sea bearing.
Sea bearing seaman. That's
Yeah. There we go. He's on the poop deck. Something else funny and amusing because I'm a 7-year-old. There we go.
There we go.
Oh, it's fucking snowing.
But
Awesome.
I haven't heard anything about Bering. I mean, presumably if Bering actually put up the fundraiser and made a video about it, he would be on all of us to mirror it on our channels. So I can only assume it's not gone up yet.
Yes, I don't know. I wouldn't.
All right, so that's.
I don't think you can. Sorry, I was just going to say I don't think you can blame Roland for not trusting Bering as far as you could throw him, frankly, because he's shown himself to be a lying, duplicitous piece of donkey shite. So.
Yeah. So that's Kilroy. For the last story of the night, we were going to talk about, well, actually, we were only going to do these two stories, but then something came hot off of Twitter, hot off the presses. And I think, Kevin, you said you're going to be doing a video about it. So you want to do a little lead into the Sargon?
Yes. Oh,
story?
God. Well, I'll do it from my...
Wait, sorry. It won't be a Kristi video if we haven't discussed Trump, Bering, and Sargon. Because that's what they shout at me now. Trump, Bering, Sargon. Trump, Bering, Sargon. So I'm just giving them what they want. They just chant for it in my Twitter feed.
That comes from what's it? Dr. Randomacam. You're aware of that guy?
I don't even know who that is. Never heard of him before.
He's a British guy who's kind of part of the honey badgers. He's a vile, detestable person. He did a video about you and went through your videos and was like, oh, look, she's made lots of videos about these people, and did a weird little song which went Trump, Bering, Sargon, Trump, Bering, Sargon. It was, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I might have to get the dance version of that.
Yeah, it was.
Because, you know, if I'm going to criticize sexist, bigoted, outdated men.
Well, exactly, and I could have just gone through his videos going rape apology, rape apology, rape apology, rape apology. But, you know, there we go. Anyway, yes. On to Sargon. I think it's about over 2 years ago now, I did my first hangout with Sargon, and I accused him of being ill. And he denied it then, and it wasn't really even then, but now it's just getting ridiculous. He's been an alt-right fucking mouthpiece for a long time, to the point where it's gotten especially stupid because he did another hangout with Millennial Woes. Now, Millennial Woes, some people will know, is an actual bona fide alt-right, Holocaust-denying fucking neo-Nazi, basically. And this is but the guy that did Sargon did a hangout with last year when Nazi salutes at the MPI conference were Roman salutes. Again, trying to provide cover for the alt-right. And this time around, it's been picked up by Right Wing Watch, for those who don't know, is a great YouTube account and website that you'll be following, because it gives you a broad spectrum of these far right arseholes. There we go, Kristi, on the button. The clip of this, which I saw, and Kristi's got the article, where Sargon repeats the lie told by the alt-right in defense of the terrorist who killed the now late Heather Heyer, that she died of a heart attack, apparently, which isn't true. And you can literally see the photograph from one angle where she's in the air, having been hit by the car. Her body then goes into shock, and she died. She was killed by a terrorist. And Sargon is now acting as an alt-right apologist for white supremacist terrorism.
Right. So, I have saved this. I haven't read it yet. Are you okay for me to read part of this out on the air, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So it says Sargon of Akkad cites white nationalist propaganda, reveals his alt-right sympathies by Jared Holt. And this was published on the 13th of December, 2017. Carl Benjamin, known online by his popular persona Sargon of Akkad, expressed his sympathies with the racist alt-right movement this week, including perpetuating alt-right propaganda that Heather Heyer was not killed by a car attack at the Unite the Right earlier this year, but instead suffered a heart attack due to poor health. Benjamin joined Colin Robertson, known online as Millennial Woes, in the first installment of Robertson's Millennial 2017 interview series on Sunday to discuss the future of the alt-right. As first pointed out by a leftist Twitter personality, Tom Bloke,
Yay!
give a shout out. An early part
whoop,
of
whoop.
An early part of the discussion included Benjamin echoing white nationalist propaganda surrounding the murder of Heyer, a liberal counter-protester at the racist Unite the Right rally earlier this year in Charlottesville, Virginia. As I understand it, quote, this is Benjamin, I thought Heather Heyer or Hayes or Heyer or whatever her name was, I thought she died of a heart attack. And Robertson replies, yes, it looked like that's what happened. It looks like what happened is that she was shocked by seeing the car crash happening and had a heart attack. Benjamin laughed when Robertson remarked Heyer's alleged heart attack seemed a bit dramatic. Benjamin said, it's more that the alt-right being blamed for someone having a heart attack, someone in tremendously bad physical condition has a heart attack, and suddenly the alt-right has murdered someone. Oh, so I have to stop now because I actually had not read any of that before we came on air.
Yeah.
And boy, does this take me back to Heather.
Yeah, it's boilerplate Nazi bullshit that he's pumping out, which is something he's moved into. Like I say, 2 years ago I accused him of being right-wing. Then I just thought, oh, he's just your average conservative dick. Now he's bona fide alt-right dog shit. Yeah, he's a downer. He's a downer.
Yeah.
But if I can't believe YouTube allows that kind of far right propaganda on a fucking website, frankly.
I am sorry. I'm still processing. So
yeah,
my initials or reactions are, it's once again a lack of utter empathy. It's the dehumanization of a woman who he disagreed with politically. It's just a disturbing lack of respect for a woman who was exercising her free speech rights, who was murdered in the course of doing that. And his aim is to undermine her and turn her into the bad person who's hurting the Nazis who've been wrongly accused of murdering her, when all they did was shock her into having a heart attack. But if she wouldn't have been in such bad health, it was really her fault that she had the heart attack. So why are we even blaming the Nazis?
Yeah, and that, to link it back to the thing we were just discussing previously, he's going to be speaking at a free speech event, even though he's happy to undermine the case of a person who was murdered expressing their freedom of speech. I think that's a point worth making.
I think, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's just appalling. It's just absolutely appalling on a moral level, on a human level, on an empathetic level, just on a basic. I mean, do you remember? I don't know if he still has it up on his channel. I remember somebody highlighting in a video the video that Sargon has as his trailer video. where he really sounds self-important and goes on and on about how he's after truth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. No. Well, yeah, I think we've seen from his 9/11 trutherism to his Hitler escapes to Argentina shit, to his he's not interested in truth. He's a right-wing hack. That's all he is. That's all he'll ever be.
What I want to know is there a line for him? Is there a line morally that he won't cross?
No. He's a panderer. He's a panderer for money. He's an intellectual prostitute.
Sadly, that gives prostitutes such a bad name because.
Well, yeah, I've got no problem with that with actual prostitutes. It's people prepared to sell this. Selling your body's one thing. Selling your soul is quite another.
Well, and it's not just his soul. He's selling other people's souls. You know, he's selling the dignity of Heather, and her death.
Yeah, he's profiting off that, which is pretty despicable. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, ultimately, it can all be boiled down to the fact that he's providing cover, or trying to provide cover, for a right-wing, far-right, white supremacist terrorist.
Yeah.
That's what he's become now. But I'll do my video. I'll probably write it tonight and film it tomorrow and have it out tomorrow night or something. And I'll show the images where you can clearly see she was hit by the car. So.
I just want to. I think it's time that we do a little dating for the EDL and Carl, because the EDL said that Carl was without a party, but I think he's found party if he wants to run for office. He's got a party that's willing and ready.
Well, not just that, but he defended Donald Trump tweeting out Britain First's racist bullshit. So he's got another party there, even though all three videos were propaganda.
Well, I'm looking forward to your video on that topic, and seeing the documentation.
Well, thank you.
I think it'd be a good refutation, and that's what you have to do, is you have to expose their bullshit and put it on the record, because otherwise the lies get repeated and then they become solidified, and then they're mistakenly remembered as what happened. So thanks for that, Kevin. Anything else you wanted to chat about? Talk a little quatch about before we head off?
No, I'm looking forward to the cricket, and it's snowing, so that's all I've got on my mind. I'm like a 6-year-old basically. I want to watch the cricket, and I want to eat chocolate and watch the snow. So that's what's happening in my world.
What does Rory think about the snow?
Rory's not happy about the snow. To be honest with you, he's decidedly against it. Oh God, he went out for a walk and took 4 steps into the snow and went, "Fuck this," and ran straight back in. And I don't. Did he go? He went out. Actually, there was a bit of rain, so he kind of thawed and all of that. So he's been out a little bit today, but it's snowing again. So
should we check the chat?
We can do, I suppose.
Okay, how about that? I'll check the chat a little bit here.
Does anyone here know of Chris Hedges?
Oh, they're just like rolling. It's too fast. There's too many people.
Yeah, I'd probably leave it there. I reckon. I think we covered our topics, didn't we?
Blame Kevin. But maybe I can have you on where we can just. I was actually thinking about this. If you and I, maybe a couple times a month, we can trade channels, but we come on and we actually do a live chat feedback, kind of like Coughlin does, but instead of it just being a one-way conversation, it'll be a two-way conversation with the chat as well, and that might be a lot of fun for people. And then it would,
We have to think of a cool pun as the title, because that's basically all I've got. All I've got is wordplay. So as soon as we come up with a title, we can do it. Yes.
All right. So in the comment section after the video ends, put your brainstorming sessions. Tweet them to Kevin on Twitter and me. And tag us both in with possible names for a weekly, like a sort of once or twice a month call-in show or hangout together, where we talk to you and ban people.
Hello, Dave's KND. There you go. Senpai noticed you. Sorry, someone was in the chat said, "Notice me, senpai, Kevin." So okay. Cool.
All right. Yeah. And then I had a couple super chats, and I really don't make an effort to look at my thing to see if anyone's ever super chatted me. So if I do that, then it would be like you'd be guaranteed a super chat question in. Although I feel a bit weird about those. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
I'm not
weird.
entirely sure why the super chat. Yeah, it's a bit weird. I don't quite get why that's a thing. Do it.
Yeah, like if you
Like, what
really
if you
want to
don't
get
give
your
me?
question answered, I want to know this.
Yeah,
I'm giving
I
you
suppose.
$2.
I suppose it makes sense
Answer.
if you're like with a really big YouTube who's got thousands watching. It's like the only way your question will ever get noticed. So I suppose that makes sense to a degree. But if
And to
you're
be
a really big
honest,
YouTuber with thousands watching, you don't really need the money because you're probably breaking it in on Patreon. So.
yeah. Or if you don't want to be bothered with Patreon, but you want to support somebody, it's a more efficient way of getting them money than through Patreon. Although they're changing their policies, they're going to
That's
not
good.
do the fee thing, by the way, everybody.
Yeah,
Patreon is eating
that's good.
crow.
Yeah,
I
and
wanted to end
rightly
on a
so,
positive.
because it was a ridiculous thing. There was no point to it. They weren't going to raise any money. It wasn't going to help anyone. It was just going to drive people, the small contributors, away. It didn't make any fucking sense. That's your business, you idiots. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
I have a feeling if they brought in a consulting firm for that idea, they really need to fire them. That was terrible.
Yes, yeah, that was a really, really dumb idea. It's like McDonald's saying, "Yeah, we're going to stop selling burgers now." There we go. Everyone's fucking leaving. Why? Because that's your core business. You're just fucking removing, you idiot.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yes.
yeah.
So then, yes, on that good news that Patreon is not going to implement stupid charges for everybody. They've rolled it back. We'll call it a day. If you have any ideas for a play on words for the show where Kevin and I do responding to the live chat, put that in. And all that's left to be said is thank you guys so much for your time and attention and lasting all the way to the end of the hangout. I've been Kristi. You've been awesome. Kevin has been awesome. And all that's left to be said after all of that is bye from me and bye from Kevin. Say goodbye, Kevin.
Goodbye, Kevin.
Bye, everybody.